All right, boys. Well, hope everyone had a great week. Talk to me about some of your dad wins and fails that you've had.
My daughter was in a school play last week, which was cool. It's my
nice.
oldest, and it's funny because I think there's times where you're like watching your kid try to perform and you're like nervous for them, you know.
Was she nervous or you were nervous?
I think she was nervous, but like she's amazing. She just this is like right up her alley. She had lines, right? She had a scene where she used lines and speaking and stuff like that, and she decided she wanted to do a Southern accent too because she was a storekeeper. I was like, that's awesome. I was like, go for it, you know?
She didn't want to do like an Indian accent or anything?
Yeah. She doesn't watch Simpsons enough yet to know that one, you know?
I've got my Apu one down.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, if we do it, it's racial appropriation, so I don't think we're allowed.
Oh, you guys have your brown cards. If anyone wants to do Indian accents, yeah.
There we go.
No, I know a guy.
Said every racist ever.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, we took away from your story.
No. So it was just cool. It's cool to see your kid up there performing. And I could just tell she was having fun. Like she was super calm and collected up there and did great, you know?
That's
So
awesome.
yeah, it's a cool experience.
That's cool. What about you?
So I started with that conversation about us going out to dinner.
Yeah.
And what was really cool is, so we went and like served dinner at a shelter or whatever as a family. But then afterwards, me and a couple of the older kids went out with my wife. And so we get back to the house and we're like walking out of the house. Now my oldest can drive. And I'm not somebody who I always like to be the one who drives. Like my wife never drives, ever, never.
She's not allowed to, or
No, she tries, just not when we're together. Like I'm always like, oh, man drives. Like that's how I think.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm walking out and I'm like, Gabe, my oldest son, I'm like, Gabe, you're driving. And so it was super weird because I jumped in the back, not even the shotgun. I jumped in the back.
Oh, wow, yeah.
With my wife and my daughter, my other son jumped. And it was it felt super weird. It felt like I was on a date again. Like, you know, sometimes when you're young, whatever, and everybody kind of just piles into a car.
Yeah.
We just piled into a car. I'm sitting back there with my arm around my wife.
You got a driver,
this is so cool. And I literally was like, I could get used to this.
Chauffeur,
I could get used to this sort of driver thing. I'm okay, what are you doing over the summer? Maybe you're just going to be my driver.
Awesome.
Maybe you can swing by the east side and pick me up as well.
So keeping the spark alive. It was just cool. So when as you get older kids, there's these new things. And again, I've never, my dad never did that with me or anything like that. So I don't know why they did it, but I think it's gonna be a mainstay. Like when I go to sports events and stuff like that, where you got to find parking, I might just be like, hey, Gabe, you're gonna drop me off. I'll call you when I'm ready.
That's a dad hack. Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Well, I'm going to go to the other end of the spectrum and talk about some toddler issues that I had this week. Actually, funnily enough, early this morning. So my eldest is great in the mornings, in terms of routine. She's got this alarm clock. It's color coded. So red in your bed, yellow you can play, green you can leave your room. Yeah. And she now does this thing which I kind of enjoy in the mornings, where she comes into our room when her lights turn green or whatever. And she'll cuddle up in our bed for a period of time, and then we'll start the day. But she's fully potty trained, so she sleeps through the night, doesn't pee, any of that stuff. But we do keep her in a pull up just in case of an accident or whatever. But thankfully, touch wood, nothing to date. This morning, we're cuddling in bed, and I'm about to start the morning, so I was like, look, I'm gonna go work out. Do you want to come down with me? She usually does, and then we'll make breakfast, whatever. And she's like, Dad, I need to pee. I was like, oh, you didn't pee yet already? Okay, fine. So we go into the master bathroom, and I realize there's no toilet paper. So I've got to go and find some toilet paper for her. And I'm finding the toilet paper, and she's yelling for me. She's like, Dad, hurry up. Never mind. And then I come back in with the toilet paper. I was like, do you need to pee? She's like, no. I was like, why? She goes, already peed. I was like, where? She goes, in my pull-up. And I was like, why'd you do that? She's like, I needed to go. I was like, it was right there. She's like, but I needed to go. And literally, I didn't know what to say. She goes, you should probably give me a bath. I was like,
That's
why?
awesome.
She goes, it's kind of gross in here.
Kind of gross.
I was like, okay. So I literally stripped her off, gave her a bath. We went downstairs. We did our workout. We had breakfast. And
It sounds very like Stewie Family Guy. Yeah,
seriously.
Family Guy.
she's got that evil genius trait to her as well.
Give me a bath.
That's so funny.
That's great.
Well, she does. She says it like an American, but like she knows like when she wants to like make me laugh, she's like, "Can I get a bath, Dad?" Much like Stewie. But
That's so great.
anyway, all right. Well, let's jump into our main topic of discussion for this week. How did you guys approach date nights, and how did things change after having kids? I don't know who wants to kick this off.
Go ahead, Andrew. You got
Oh,
something?
dude, I would say that we have been. It ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
There's no like I think we've been we've always tried to be intentional about it. But I'd be lying if I said there wasn't like a 2-year stint where I don't think we went on a date. Like,
Yeah.
I can't think of like there was times in our marriage and relationship, not because we don't like each other, but just because whatever. Like you have young kids.
Yeah, you're in survival mode.
Yeah, you're in survival mode, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, overall, like it's incredibly important. Like I don't know where I heard this first, and I'm not the only person to say this or whatever, but like we've really made a conscious effort over the last, we've been married now. This will be our 18th year of marriage. On the 10th, actually.
Oh, wow.
So
Congrats.
I think it's the 18th year of marriage. Yeah, 18th year of marriage.
Something like that.
Something like that. Oh,
Wait, Matt and I meant to get you a present? Why did you?
I think so.
Is that how you point
dropping
that?
Yeah,
hints
he's
here?
dropping
Oh,
hints,
Yeah.
Naveed.
understood.
Dropping
It's
hints.
gold. I think 18 is gold. Actually, I have no idea what 18 is.
I don't think you want to tell your wife it's gold. It's rocks.
Yeah, it's
It's granite.
Old-fashioned
tradition.
So we've always been like, listen, if we take care of ourselves as a couple, the key. So in our world, it's like God, each other, and our kids, right? And so and it goes in that order. And so we've always made a conscious effort to like put each other first over our kids, which is sometimes hard to do. And depending on culturally, people say no, that's not how you do it. But for us, we found like we can be better parents. Our kids are better at whatever. And so we've always tried to do that. And like I said, it's kind of gone back and forth. But I think one of the things we've always done is like we've got a couple different ways that we've been able to kind of keep these things going. And one of the things we did, and I'm sure I've shared it with you guys from time to time, but when I was building one of my first businesses, it was literally like, I'm not kidding you when I say I was working 20 hours a day consistently. But I'd come home, usually after dinner was already served. I would, help bathe the kids, put them in bed. And then before I would take my dinner to my desk and eat at my desk while doing whatever, we had what was called like Coffee 30. And so Coffee 30 was like I would brew an actual cup of coffee because I'm going to be up for the next 6 hours. Anna sometimes would brew, coffee, or she may have like decaf, whatever. And we'd sit for 30 minutes, and it was like I had to put my phone away. Everything was gone, and it was just me. And we'd sit at the table or sit on the couch or whatever. And it was like 30 minutes of undivided attention.
Yeah.
And so she could say like, oh, this is happening or that's happening, or we could talk about things we need to talk about. But that Coffee 30 kept us tethered together, right? So it wasn't like.
Did it feel natural, or was it kind of like you made it natural?
We had to force it at first.
Yeah.
Like it felt so unnatural. And, I had about a 40-minute drive from where I worked to home. So like I would try to decompress during that 40 to 45 minutes, but I would then start my second job. So my brain's actually gearing up into the second. So like you get in, you're like, okay, I just got to get my kids done. So like you're thinking all the checklists as a guy, like get these things done. Where Anna has now just gone from like 5 a.m. till whatever, 7:30 at night, being, a single mom for the most part.
Yeah.
And then now she's like, okay, I have to go to bed by 10 o'clock because I got to be up in 7. And she was always either breastfeeding or pregnant during that time. So like it was just, we were both always exhausted.
Yeah.
And so we thought of this idea and we're like, we got to do it. And I would say like the first couple of like weeks, it was just so unnatural and so odd for us to do it because you're forcing yourself to do it. But over time, it became natural, and to a point like we don't do that nowadays. We're able to get out on dates, we're able to do those types of things, but we still will every once in a while. We'll be like Coffee 30. All right, Coffee
Nice. 30,
and we'll
nice.
and it's not there's coffee. Just we know we're going to spend 30,
Yeah.
40 minutes of just like sitting on the couch or sitting around talking
Yeah.
about something like that.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's one way, and that's kind of how we view it. It's super important, but anyway, that's
Yeah,
kinda how we
great.
view it.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I'd frame it as, from an approach standpoint, as expectations versus reality. So much of what we've spoken about the last, couple of weeks around, anything post kids is just having that expectation that things won't be perfect. So you might plan a date night, but a kid might have a stomach bug, or you might plan a date night and your babysitter or family member may fall through. And I think in the early years, I used to get really annoyed, and like it would kind of not ruin my day, but it would ruin my evening because I'd be looking forward to whatever. And I think I'm or I think hopefully all of us are lucky that like my wife is genuinely like my friend as well. Like I like love hanging out with her.
Yeah.
So like if there's ever a time where like she's mad at me, I'm like, can you grow up? Because like you're my only friend like in this house. Like we need to.
You're my friend.
We do this thing every once in a while, not to cut you off, this thing every once in a while, like, all right, friend talk. And so like everything else, like friend talk, my wife is pissing me off.
That's funny.
We don't do that, but like
Yeah.
That's
But I
funny.
literally will poke her and be like, you're my only friend here. Like, can we please not do this? Like, who am I gonna? It's one of you guys. I'm gonna have to hit up at that point. But so I've kind of, like I said, expectations versus reality doesn't bother me as much anymore. And I think we'll go into this as we kind of deep dive this topic. Like, we don't have to physically leave the house. So we've got a lot of things that once the kids are down, whether it's like in the summer and we're like grilling something, or like the fire is on and we're just kind of like hanging out there, or we do make a concerted effort to like have, TV shows that we watch together, or whatever it is. And so we make a concerted effort that once the kids are down, we do spend some time together before I invariably have to do, if it's a bit of work or whatever else. And so I have lowered my expectations of like what the date night needs to be, because when it was us pre-kids and we were living in New York, I think we were doing, and date night is different, right? Like date night, I'm not talking like it's a romantic date night where you have to go out and do whatever, right. But we were doing date nights almost every night. Like, whether it was as simple as like just taking a walk in like Central Park, or going for a coffee, or just...
Man, this is like a romance. Can I be there?
Yeah.
Can you take me on a date, Naveed?
I can hear the jazz music playing in the back, walking to
somebody
New
selling
York.
you a flower, a rose for $1.
I break out into song. I start dancing.
Enchanted, like that.
I actually met that guy in New York, James Marsden.
There you go.
I'd run into him. Yeah. But no, we would do so much together because we're very active, like as a couple, and so post kids it grinds to a halt, and it did really bother me like for a period of time. But yeah, I think since my wife is way more resilient and adaptable. It's hard to believe I am the high maintenance one in the relationship.
Super hard to believe.
So hard
Thank
to
you.
believe.
Thanks for qualifying that, guys. Yeah. But yeah, I have lowered my expectations around like necessarily leaving the house and being able to do date nights here and there. But yeah, for the most part, we do try and leave the house at least once a month. But to piggyback off your point and kind of think through, there is a period when you have a couple of young kids, and just even getting out the house is challenging enough. So
yeah, for sure.
What about you?
So I think it's just like just like you guys, without kids, every time a new restaurant would open downtown or wherever, you'd be going, you'd be eating late, and with kids, I've found that it's a lot more about the little things now than it is like the gestures or even leaving the house, right? So like a funny story, my wife and I, we try to be really intentional before we leave and when we come in to like embrace, hug, you know what I mean? Say goodbye to each other.
Yeah.
And my oldest daughter started, whenever this happens, like in the house, she started going, dun, 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 right? She started doing that song. And so all the other kids picked it up. And so now my 2-year-old, who is super jealous for her mom constantly, but if she's sitting there or whatever and we hug, she'll start going dun, 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 dun. So now it's like this funny thing.
How hot and heavy is the petting that they're doing?
Dude. We were talking about OnlyFans to start this episode.
It's not a peck. Like it's not like a peck. Like
no, man, you can't just do a peck. It's like you got to do 6 seconds or something like that for the endorphins.
Might be the last time he sees his wife. He doesn't. He never knows.
That's right. Yeah, you got heartfelt goodbye.
It's going off to war every time he goes.
Let's just say it's intense when I leave the house. Kids running down the street.
Is she like waving with her handkerchief out the door?
Yeah.
Kids are running after the car.
That's happened. Yeah, that's happened. That's happened.
Making us look bad.
No, but again, because like that, going back to like the little things become a lot more important when you just don't have time with each other that you're going to be able to spend like tons of one-on-one time. So like
intentional is a great word, and not to get into my parents, but it's going to sound slightly nuts to say, I don't remember my parents kissing each other. I can't remember seeing my parents be like affectionate with each other. And my wife, similar to what you just described, she ensures we're very intentional about, like, when I leave the house, making sure we are, like, giving each other a goodbye kiss and coming home, like a welcome kiss, but also like how we are with each other around the kids. Again, especially with girls as well, like making sure that, like,
they see it.
They see all of that, right? Like, you're showing your love. So it's interesting you made that point, because I didn't know if that was like a me thing, where because I didn't see it, that I wasn't really accustomed to it, and it became something that has been ingrained, like, with us as well. But yeah, it being intentional makes a big difference. What about, like, just in general spontaneity? Like, with kids, how do you try and balance spontaneity of, like, date nights versus, like, really pre-planning date nights?
I feel like the spontaneity is pretty much gone for that. Yeah. If it happens, it's with the kids. Like, it's a family, like the stuff that we do that's spontaneous now, it's like everybody jump in the car. We're all going to go do something together, just because with babysitting and, where we're at with the ages of our kids, like, we can't just leave the house with them, without someone else being there.
Yeah.
So,
You must be a lot more spontaneous, because you've got...
It gets better, guys.
Yeah, I was going to say.
We're kind of on we've just kind of, like, crested the hill of, like, being able to have kids that watch. So, yeah, I would say that... in general, like, we went from having, like, no ability to have any sort of spontaneity to be able to be way more like, just, I come home from work and it's a whatever, and I'm like, let's go grab something to eat, as opposed to which is really, really nice, because before that was never the case. It was like, we're talking weeks out of planning, because we had so many kids so packed together. It was like, you had to find a babysitter that was okay watching that many of kids.
Yeah.
If Anna
Spoiler
was like,
alert, there's no babysitter that's okay with watching.
Well, we should have one episode just on, like, cost of babysitter, like per hour cost of a babysitter, because I never was a babysitter growing up. Big shocker, right?
Yeah.
But
Nor was I.
But, like, what you pay a babysitter now just seems insane to me.
It's crazy.
Like, the cost seems absolutely insane to me. So anyway, we will have to have, like, a whole discussion on that, because the economics don't make sense. But anyway, it'd be very hard for us to find somebody to watch the kids. And if we did, like, we were living pretty far away from both of our sets of parents. So they weren't, like, part of, like, go drop them off, or parents will come over and watch the kids. And for the most part, all of our siblings were off doing stuff. So every once in a while we'd have one of them come watch the kids, but it wasn't like a consistent, help. So yeah, we had to be really, really, like, focused in terms of, like, how can we kind of keep the spark alive, so to speak, of spontaneity, as opposed to, like...
Who takes the lead then for date nights?
That's a good question. Like, now?
In general, I mean, it may have evolved over time. I would say, for the most part, I take the lead with the date nights.
Yeah.
And it's not because I am, Captain Lothario with romance. It's because, again, I'm very type A, and my wife's very much like go with the flow. So I could pick any restaurant and she'll find anything to eat on that menu. I could pick any place to go and she'll have a great time. I'm the opposite. Like, if you pick a place, I have to deconstruct it so much that it would ruin the experience.
I'm like the opposite of you in that way. Well, I'm the opposite in the sense of, like, I don't want to pick.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
It's why I love traveling with you.
I don't want to do anything like that. But here's the thing: with my wife, I'll still, like, pick apart every element of it. I'll be like, no, pick wherever you want to go. I don't really care. It's like, oh, we're gonna go to this place, and I was like, we get there, I'm like, this place sucks.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing on the menu. It's all edamame beans. I'm a steak guy, whatever it might be. I've gotten a lot better at that, but, like, that was always my, like, go-to. And so she'd be like,
and that's why I pick it, because, like, then I have no excuse for that.
Yeah.
And so again, like, even things like takeouts and stuff, my wife will typically give a bunch of options. Yeah. And then I'll pick it, because if something goes wrong, then it's my fault.
That's your fault.
And I'm good with that. I can live with
that. You own
it.
it.
Like,
That's
I can own it.
That's good. At least you don't blame. Like, I'll blame my wife.
She's so lucky.
She's awesome.
Just can't win.
We'll edit that.
I've done, in my defense, I've done a much better job where I genuinely don't care. It's like, it's truly like, I don't really care where we go. I don't really care what we eat. I'm not doesn't really matter to me. So,
that jives with our experience.
Yeah,
together.
I genuinely don't care.
Well, no, it's like, I need steak. That's it. Once
I need 25 grams of protein. Stat.
There's a comedian that has that. He's like, every time my wife goes, "You pick," he's like, "Steak." Steak and vegetables. And it's right back to her. You know what I mean? It's like,
what about you? Do you take the lead?
I usually take the lead on that. Like, she's not super picky, with like
all the
where
heavy
we
petting
eat.
that goes on in that.
Yeah, that's right.
My bad.
You can go anywhere. I'll usually, I'm probably kind of the one that'll look around and same thing. I kind of put it under the filter of like, what's this place like? Is it any good?
Yeah.
And try to, because again, date night for us typically has been like going to dinner, just like not having, like not
dinner
having to
and
cook.
shopping.
Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite type of date night?
Like
now post kids, what's your favorite?
Yeah, like I
type
said,
of date night?
before kids, we eat real late. We go out
Like 9 o'clock.
We find somewhere to go.
Yeah.
That's close by. Now it's like, can we go early enough so we can eat and then hit some store on the way back that we never go to anymore. But we want to walk around for a little bit. So
we used to, and a few years ago, we used to make a real concerted effort for whoever was watching the kids, because it was typically a family member, to ensure the kids were bathed, they'd eaten, we'd put them down, we'd wait for a period, we'd make sure they were asleep.
Yeah.
Now the hack is, let's leave as early as possible to avoid doing any of that stuff.
And come home as late
and then
as possible.
and then come home as early as possible so we can just enjoy the rest of the evening.
We'd be like, all right, if we leave now, we don't have to feed them.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we come back after 8:30, they're already in bed.
That's it.
So it's like 5:30 to 8:30 is a magic window.
You ever look for their light on? We can see our daughter's room.
We'll just
So I'm
keep
like,
going
lights
round.
on.
We'll keep
Let's
going
just take
round.
one-
We'll keep going round.
Circle the
Go ahead
block.
and grab that.
But my wife has that mentality. Like, if I go out, like, for anything work related or with friends or whatever, and I'll be like, well, what time do you need me or whatever? And she's like, well, if you're not going to be here to help with the kids and put them down, it doesn't matter what time, because at that point, like, that's really the only helpful thing that you can do. And so she, that applies for any situation. What about like prioritizing kids and date nights? And I mean that from the standpoint, do you take kids out for dates as well? Because I for a period of time did that with my eldest. Like, I took her out for like dates.
Oh, like
and stuff.
one-on-one?
Yeah, like one-on-one dates with like kids.
I do that with my girl, like, because
Yeah.
I have all girls. So
Yeah.
we do daddy-daughter dates.
And do you do that with all of them? Do you do individual
Once
ones
they
with them?
hit a certain age,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah, well, and then they all, and it's something super simple,
Yeah.
right? It's like go and grab a donut, and
Yeah,
they're just
I was
like
checking what he
ecstatic.
meant by super simple, because I think he's going to show us up again.
He's like,
Just
we
the
both
Ritz-Carlton.
get dressed up,
Yeah.
like, tuxedo. And,
I just get the limo, we go to the-
Quinceañera dress. And you know what?
Take a quick chopper flight downtown. And,
Every weekend's a quinceañera.
At least the dress.
that's great.
What about you?
So I've got a bunch of daughters, and I would say that I try to be, I don't know if they're dates, but I try to do like acts of like where I know what they need.
Yeah.
And so we'll do different things. Like my oldest daughter, obviously, like the way to her heart is like any article of clothing you could imagine, because she's a 14-year-old girl, right?
Yeah.
So, or Starbucks. So there's the two things.
Yeah.
Nice. So typically it'll be like, hey, you want to go on a Starbucks run or something?
Do I have the same interests of a
You do.
14-year-old
You
girl?
do.
Yeah, I do. Same hair care routine too.
So we'll do that, and then obviously it kind of trickles down from there, where it'll just be kind of to your point. Like I'm probably not as good as I should be in terms of like being super specific about what we do, but it'll be like, we got to run up to Target and get something. So I'll grab one of the girls and be like, hey, come on up with, and then usually I try to get them something just as like a token of like, hey, this was a special time. So whether it's, a bag of Skittles, a Starbucks, a special drink, whatever it might be, try to do something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. What would you say to like parents who are like struggling like to prioritize date nights right now? Like, in terms of, I think you had alluded to it, where it feels like the nights are never ending and you're kind of like, in survival mode. Like, what advice would you have?
I'll say and I think I already told the story on a different podcast, but having the nighttime routine like be set in stone at home was like a huge game changer, because our firstborn was struggling to sleep. We were going crazy. I mentioned we got help, right? We did, and then we implemented this whole routine. And like when we did that, and then it started working, we realized like the reality is your kid could sleep for like 10 to 12 hours a night, like when they're young, especially.
Yeah.
And so if you put them down, early enough, you then realize, wow, we actually have a couple hours now where it's just me and my wife. So we can decompress, we can connect, we can talk, we can see what's going on. Yeah. And that's been a huge, that was a huge help. Instead of just being like, and again, we have the benefit of doing that because we still have younger kids, right? My kids are only 9 is my oldest kid. Sure. So I'm sure when they get older, they stay up later, they have their own prerogative, they want to do stuff. But when they're little, like that was huge for us, because we're like, wow, we can be adults, like normal functioning adults for like a couple hours.
What do you think maybe this is for you, what's the age when your oldest kid becomes responsible enough that you're like, okay, he can or she can watch the kids while my wife and I go out?
I would say it's different for each kid, right? So like we have like my oldest.
Let's name and shame them.
All right, starting with I know my oldest. He is extremely responsible. Like firstborn son. Every character you would think of in that way is very much there, right? Like if dad puts kids down at 8:00, he's like, kids got to go down at 8:00. When we're thinking like, no, just survive. It's fine. So I think the first time we and the thing is you like train them. So like, all right, mom and dad are going to go up and get a coffee or something like that for our date. So we're going to be gone for 30 minutes. And maybe we did that when he was like 12, right? And then at like 13, we're like, okay, now we're going to be gone for an hour. We may not fully commit to a dinner.
Yeah.
And I'd say right in that like 12, 13-ish range is when we felt like confident enough to be like, okay, they can take care of themselves. But you got to remember, when we have a 13-year-old, we also have an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old. So there was more people there to like help with whatever might happen. Yeah. And we almost always took the youngest with us. So like dates for the longest time because we were having a kid every year. So like they were either breastfeeding or Anna was so pregnant we really couldn't go on dates because it was just uncomfortable for the most part. And
For you or her?
For me,
I know.
She'd go anywhere. But for me, like I'm, I gotta do nesting and all that sort of stuff.
Phantom baby weight to be put on.
It's a real issue, okay, man?
No, it is. We should do an episode on that. I think it's a real issue.
Andrew, when do you let your kids put themselves to bed? At what age did you guys let them decide when they go to bed?
So like now, like right now, right around like 9 years old is when 9 to 10 years old is when. We like, hey, your bedtime is whatever, 9:00 or 9:30 at that age. You have to come to us, and they come, and we've got this like, these songs we sing our kids, and whatever, we pray over them, whatever, and then they kind of go up to bed. But up until that age, like up until like whatever, it's 8 or 9 years old, it's kind of still like they go to bed. There's a routine, kind of going to bed routine. But anywhere from that sort of like 9 to 10 years old, it kind of switches. And maybe that's different when you have a lot of kids versus not a lot of kids. But for us, there's like this like graduation ceremony when you no longer have to be put to bed because then you're considered like a big kid. So like they want that. And then so I'd say right around that 9-10 years old is when we kind
what's the I'd say what's the best date night that you guys have had since becoming parents?
I don't know if there's like one great one that I have to put at the top, but we have been able to like do that little staycation where like we actually get a hotel in downtown and someone can take the kids for overnight. It's rare, right? That we're able to pull that off. So I feel like whenever we're able to do that, it feels like back in the old day, because the kids are home. Then you don't have to be home, right? So
I'd say that for the one that comes to mind for me is just the first one that we ever did. Like when you're first time parents.
That is a great.
And I'm trying to think what it was. We had like a charity event that we went to. So it was like a big like gala event. So we both got like dressed up in like, like a tux and an outfit. And it was the first time we were leaving at the time, my eldest with a family member post having done similar to what you guys had done, like that taking care of babies thing. And it was like, not for me, I was just like, let's just get out the house. But like for your spouse, it's always like a really big thing because same thing, breastfeeding, then you've got like all the considerations. If I pump now, then it's X number of hours until I have to pump again. And then where am I going to keep the milk? All these nonsense logistics that you have to like think about. But like I still remember like leaving, and then even when we left, like my sister-in-law was then panicking around like, well, what about this, and what if that happens, and what if this happens? I was like, what if you just manifest positivity? Like can we just all
let's change the mindset, all right?
Every date night I have to have a pep talk with my sister-in-law to say, please manifest a positive experience. Stop worrying about what could go wrong here. I should probably pay her as well. That's probably part of the issue.
That might help.
I was going to say a crisp $100 bill may let the anxiety go away. But yeah, just that first date night. That first date night still sticks in my mind because every date night after that becomes incrementally easier just because everyone knows the routine. My sister-in-law knows the routine. We know the routine and whatever. But what about you?
It's funny you mention that because I don't know when it was. I think it was like after kid 3 or right around kid 4, something like that. We hadn't gone on a date in a long time. And I remember like we had dropped the kids off at my in-laws, and I remember pulling out of the driveway and being like, "Hun, no, we were good friends even before we started dating. We were friends, and so we've been in each other's lives over 20 years. At this point, like 20, 21, 22 years. But at that point, you see each other every single day, whatever. And I remember pulling out of the driveway, being like, I don't know what to talk to you about. Like, we have 4 hours ahead of us, and it feels like I have no clue what to say. And obviously, that awkwardness lasted a few minutes. But, I would, going back to what you kind of said at the beginning is like, so that's the thing I thought of, number one, is like that event. And obviously, it was fine.
Yeah.
But there is this element of like, at least in my mind, of like, I don't want to use the term kind of fake it till you make it, but it's almost like it's sometimes really hard to manifest those feelings again when you have kids, or when you come home from work and you're so weighed down from all the crap that you've been carrying. And then you're like, okay, well, now I got to go out on this date.
Yeah.
And it can sometimes feel like, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I'm whatever.
Like manufactured.
This feels like it's a manufactured event.
Sure.
And I don't really want to do this. Right. And I can say, like, personally, I had that happen so often with me, where it was almost a cause of anxiety or angst, because I had all these other things I needed to do or wanted to do, or these burdens I was carrying internally. And then you're like, oh, let's go have fun. It was like, yes, I get that this is supposed to be fun for us, but all this is like a real, like, it's a distraction from the things that I think I need to get done in my head.
Yeah.
And I would liken it to like going to the gym and working out, right? Like, the first time you go, it's brutal. Everything feels like it weighs 1,000,000 pounds. This is dumb. Yeah. And the second time you go, it feels terrible. And it all happened. Then all of a sudden, it just doesn't feel that way anymore. And so there's times, I think, in your marriage, especially when you have a growing family or you have different jobs or stuff like that, where like it might not feel like that. I don't want to say spark, because that's kind of like that's going to have a negative connotation. Yeah. But there's going to be times where it feels like, man, it's really hard for me to kind of get back into that mode of loving going out with this person that I've, said I'm going to spend the rest of my life with at the same level that I used to when we were single. And in my experience, and again, this is just me, it's like, if you continue to like work at it, and I don't mean work it in the sense of just kind of go through the motions, but work at it and really try to like understand, okay, why am I feeling this way, or what do I have to do to get there? Yeah. Slowly but surely becomes much easier over time to be like, okay, I'm going to, like, just like any muscle, I'm going to snap back to this.
Well, no different to your coffee 30.
And then like, so it starts out super awkward, but then slowly but surely you start realizing like, no, these are sacred moments that we get together. Yeah. So like when we go on a date, this is a sacred time for us, or this is a time where, we can talk about things that maybe have been weighing on us or whatever it is. And we don't necessarily always have to have like dating fun, right? To where that to me has been, I think one of the bigger things in terms of how our relationship has changed over the years is that, it's not always just let's go have fun. It's now like we support each other emotionally, we support each other spiritually, we do all these things together as a couple, that sometimes date nights look very, very different than they did.
Yeah,
and it's being okay. It's kind of falling in love again with the same person that you've been able to fall in love with, all those times or all those years ago. And so that I think is something where like you read that in a book, or you might go to a seminar, or, a marriage seminar, and they say, always fall, and you're like, how does that even work?
Yeah.
And the best way I could quantify it for how we've done it is like repetition, consistent repetition, consistently being okay with a change in your partner or yourself, and being and being, finding fulfillment in that individual. Has been super critical for us to enjoy those dates and be able to kind of slip into them easier. So like now, where it might be like, okay, it takes you to the end of dinner to feel comfortable and we're feeling good. Now it's like the moment our butt seats hits the car in the driveway, we're like, oh, we're on a date. Yeah. Now it's time to have fun, and now we can do the things we need to do, as opposed to decompressing for the first 3 hours of your date. So anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the love languages thing too. My wife, like, when you figure that out, that there's obviously the book, and it's, I think there's some valuable stuff in there. But to your point, when you can kind of like realize this is what my partner needs to feel loved, this is what I need. It helps at least, like,
obviously yours is physical. We know that. We know that.
A lot of physical.
Please don't share anymore.
Just leave it at that. I did actually think of an epic date story though. I gotta tell it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So we were with all the kids, and there was a band that was coming to town, and we knew one of the singers. Okay. It was my wife's sister's good friend, and she was touring with this other band that's a big band that you probably know, and they were coming to Cleveland. And so we found out that she was opening for them, and my wife texted her and said, hey, we found out you're coming to Cleveland, like, I know you've been on the road. If you guys want to stop over like for a home cooked meal, whatever, like feel free. Just know that like if you need to just rest, whatever, our doors are open for you. And she got back to her like that day, the day of the concert. She had texted her a few days before and just said, "Hey, sorry, I got your text. Fortunately, we have another show like right after we'll be traveling as soon as the show's over, and we're coming in from another city." But she's like, "But do you guys want to come to the show?" And we were like, "I think we can pull this off, you know?"
Yeah.
And so Anna calls her mom. She's like, "Can you watch the kids?" She agreed to it. So we're like, "Yeah, we can come." So she's like, "Great, I'll leave you tickets at Will Call." So it was at Nautica downtown Cleveland, which is one of the best places to see a show. Right, it's the summertime, and we get down there. There's a huge line, but I'm like, we got Will Call, so we just walked right up there. And the lady's like, "Yep, got 2 tickets for you." And so I'm like looking at the tickets, and I'm like, I think these are pretty good seats. And they're like 3rd row, like right in the middle. Okay, so when we walk in, they had their merch table up, and they were selling some stuff. So like we bought a bunch of stuff, try to support them. And my wife goes instantly puts the shirt on. Okay, and then we get up there, we're in the front row or like 3rd row, whatever, and they're up there singing, performing. Well, she spots, or no, her other singer spots the shirt and goes, "Nice shirt," and which then draws our friend's attention to us. And she goes, "Hey," and she literally called us out. She's like,
"Oh, that's awesome,
man!" Yeah, she's like, "Hey guys," like called us out on stage. We're like waving, and so, and then it was just like a really great show. Like we all saw some other friends there that we were like, "There's nobody in front of us. Come up here." They all came up, and we were all in the front together.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then the funny thing was, like, I think a day or two later, Anna was at school, and some other mom sees her. She's like, "Were you at that Need to Breathe concert or whatever last night?" She's like, Did they wave to you from stage? I was like, boom. I was like, that's ultimate, cool mom moment. You can be like, yeah, no big deal.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
That was an epic night that had spontaneity.
Awesome.
We weren't planning it. It was totally unplanned, and it ended up just being like
that's
a super
awesome.
fun night.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's a nice pivot to listener corner then, because the listener question for this week is, what's your worst date night story that you've had with your wife? And I'm happy to kick it off if you guys need to.
Do it.
So I'm going to go to a story pre-kids.
Okay.
And it's a story we still talk about to this day, and it's a story that still comes up multiple times throughout the year, and I'll explain why. So my wife is a huge Adele fan, loves Adele. My wife is a singer. Like, obviously I'm biased. I think she sounds like Adele. Like she is phenomenal. And so ever since I've known her, Adele's been kind of like her muse, inspiration, whatever. And so early on into like our dating, Adele at the time was touring. And it was, I think, around the time she released that song, Hello. So I'm trying to get a framework of what year it was. I think 2016 at this point. And so she was coming to New York, to Madison Square Garden. And I was working at a finance company at that point. And I remember asking around, because it was like one of those ones where the tickets went on sale, and within 30 seconds, all the tickets were gone.
Yeah.
And then if you looked on like, StubHub or SeatGeek, they were going for, I think the nosebleeds or whatever were going for like $2,000 a piece.
Jeez.
And so, like little old me back then was like, well, I'm not going to pay $2,000 for nosebleeds per ticket up there. So I asked around, like in like my network of people, and was like, well, where do I find tickets? And someone was like, well, we have this internal posting board, like an intranet type thing, where people are, you could buy, sell, exchange all sorts of things, like in within the firm.
It's called Silk Road. Yeah. You may have heard of that.
Deep web.
Craigslist, I think. Dark web. But there were also links to like tickets on there.
Yeah.
And it was like all sorts of links, right? It would be a link to, oh, my so-and-so has a season ticket to the Giants and is looking to sell a game. Or so-and-so has a season ticket to the Knicks, they're looking to sell a game. But it also had like, oh, I've also bought from, this Craigslist buyer before, or I've also bought from this, and it's legit. So it was like meant to be like a verified type thing,
nice,
right?
Yeah.
Right. So because Craigslist and places like that, full of scammers, but it was almost like an internal Reddit to say like, well, I bought from this user on Craigslist before, it's legit.
Sure.
So I went on it, and sure enough, there was someone through Craigslist who was supposedly a verified seller that someone had validated internally. So I hit them up and I explained, I was like, listen, do you have 2 tickets like to Adele? Like I need to, whatever. And, my guard should have been up when like the price was like $300 a ticket. Now the retail price for these tickets was maybe like $100 or whatever. But then this person was like doing a markup for like $300. But on StubHub and places like that, it was like $2,000 a pop. So again, my guard was a little bit up, and so I reached out, go, hey, so-and-so said, like, you're a verified seller, or they've used you for, and they're like, yeah, like, I've sold to this person before. And so eventually she's like, well, you know, if you want to meet up with me, I can get you the tickets, you can exchange the cash, blah, blah. So I meet up with this person, we exchange whatever, cash, tickets. I looked at the tickets, I was just like, I don't know. Like, you know when you get like a gut feeling?
Yeah, sure.
And so I looked at him, I was like, all right, but like, I guess you were verified. Like someone had done a.
Were they like printer paper? Like
no, it was like
Polar Express.
It was like
Someone wrote Adele on there. Yeah.
Adele with two D's. Someone wrote Adele.
It's Adele with
a crayon.
I thought it was her signature. So anyway, the day of the concert comes up. It's Madison Square Garden. We're both super pumped, but I can't get this lingering thought like out the back of my mind.
Sure,
the tickets are fake. So we like rock up to MSG, and like it's packed. I mean, you know, people are trying to get in. People that don't have tickets, blah blah blah, like rammed. And I'm looking around. I'm like, people have got their tickets out, and this is pre like the QR code days. Like it was like printouts of stuff. Like you had to print out StubHub. And I'm looking around. I'm like, I don't see a single ticket that looks like mine. And we go up, it gets scanned, and it goes, the red thing.
Oh no!
Oh man!
Like and the guy yells out, "Fake!"
Like shamed you publicly
Dude.
too.
Publicly shamed
he thought I was trying to scam him.
Yeah.
And like the color like just like went from me, and my wife's like, "What's going on?" And then like I'm like texting like this person, and this person isn't like replying back to me. Well, what are they gonna do? It's like a BS Craigslist ad at that point.
Gosh.
So this is where, but it gets better. This is where.
Did you fight him? Please tell me you fought somebody.
No. I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back here. This is where, like, you know that Bear Grylls quote, overcome, adapt, improvise, or whatever order it is. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Probably that one. I've always said, no matter what the situation, like, I will pull it out the bag. Like, and it's not a humble brag. That's like just a statement of fact. So my wife is like, just like, really like obviously upset that like this has happened. And I went, you know what? It's whatever. Concerts, I'm making this up. 7:30 start date. 7:30 start time. We've got there at 7. I was like, I wonder if there's still tickets on StubHub, because there's no way you're still trying to sell them for $2,000 with 30 minutes to go.
Yeah.
I kid you not. Tickets had come down to 300. And I went, snap, bought them. And the message I got instantly was, well, you can't get them unless you're at the box office right now, because you won't get there in time. Well, we were already in the stadium, and we managed to get like the tickets for a fraction of the price in better seats than we would have got. But we still talk about it today.
How's that a bad date? That sounds like it's a great date.
Well, no, it was it initially started. Well, actually, it was maybe a setup to say.
It sounds like Naveed. That's a story that shows how awesome Naveed is.
Yes.
What was the question again?
Wait a minute.
What was the question
You took me
again?
down a topsy-turvy story there that ends up you being a hero.
Have you ever?
Listener corner, I'm awesome. Oh,
I just realized, that
always come
actually
true.
turned out into a great date. No, but it was it did end up turning into like a phenomenal date. But
That's
for
awesome.
95% of that story, it was like the worst date night.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was when that guy yelled out like "fake."
That's great.
And like now when we go to like Cavs games or wherever we go to, my wife's always like, "Are they legit? Are they legit?"
Did you yell out fake though? Someone else could stop. That's what I want to know. Fake.
Well, it was rife at that Adele concert. Like the guy kept doing it because like there was just people trying to get
I'm
in.
sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Especially back in the ticket days.
Oh,
like now it's a little bit harder with your phones.
That's right.
but-
That's exactly what I was saying. Like now you can't really do it. They
Right.
won't even let you print that stuff out.
Yeah.
Whereas like before it was
Yeah.
like the printout days.
That's
But
funny.
anyway, what about you?
I was
guys?
just gonna say ours is probably just the dates that never happened. Like you brought this up earlier. That happened to us like a couple months back where we had a night planned out. Sitters come over, and my daughter pukes all over the place. Like it's literally, like they're there. She pukes, and then we're like, we're not going anywhere.
I think she's been like, never mind.
I know.
Do you guys like? Have you guys ever like tried to like just be like, okay, well, who cares at that point, or do you guys always like?
I think she puked when they were there. So
No, like if they puke, like let's say it's a 5:30.
Oh, okay,
a 5:30.
okay.
I'm a who cares guy. My wife's moral compass kicks in,
Yeah,
and she's
yeah.
a no, like we can't do that.
Yeah.
And I'm always
Yeah.
like but we can.
Yeah.
Like whisper, like the devil
you
whispering.
just put
in
your face, your finger up to her mouth.
No, it's actually like
We're going on this date. Yeah.
with or without you.
I don't know how we actually have approached that. We typically like, depending on how bad it is. If the kid's looking rough, we'll probably call it off. But every once in a while, we're like,
Yeah,
we usually
right.
let them know, like, hey, by
Yeah.
the way, there's a sick kid. But
Yeah.
worst dates. I mean, we've got a lot. Not because of anything other than like,
Sure.
you just, there's exposure, right? And with all the kids we have, there's always like, I can't tell you how many times we've been like, you guys have heard the story of like,
I know some stories.
you know some stories. Like there was a time where we flew down to Miami for like a romantic weekend, and we had to fly back within like 3 hours of landing.
Yeah.
For an emergency medical procedure, for one of my kids. So like we've had stuff like that happen, which are, they all tell good stories. But I would say the ones that irritates me most are the ones where, and I'm sure like if you've been married longer than, a week, you've had one of these issues where like you start a conversation that starts like, innocuous, right? Or like just a regular, and then it turns into like somewhat of a fight or an argument. And then it continues to go through the night. And towards the end of it, you're fighting about stuff that has nothing to do with the original fight,
right.
but you're just trying to like prove your ground.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, you're like, we just wasted. And also like, I'm a big proponent of like, you don't go to bed angry.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You have to
Hash
solve
it
it
out.
that night.
That was actually in our vows, actually. Don't
Oh,
get
really?
angry.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I just, I've always heard my parents say it, and so like I'm always like a big proponent of it. It's got this biblical connotation to it of like, don't go to bed angry.
Yeah.
So like we never go to bed angry, and I would say like in the however many years of marriage it's been, 18 years, we've always held true to that fact. But it doesn't mean you can't ruin 3 or 4 hours of
Oh, you have to. Yeah.
Right?
Let's stay up till
so
4 a.m. for no reason.
Exactly. Just complaining about something stupid. So I'm always angry that like those are probably the ones that are most regrettable. Are the ones where you like. I'm not talking about like you'll have some conversations that are like intense and they might not be where you want them to be, but they're like they're constructive, right?
Yeah, sure.
But the ones that are just like pointless, you're just arguing to argue your point.
The ones where it's like you and your stupid friends and their podcast.
And so those type of dates always bum me out because it's like, man, we get maybe 1 or 2, like 2 or 3 of these a month to go on, and we just like wasted one opportunity. And so those are the ones I think are most regrettable because like, and now what we'll do is because we've had that, we just be like, okay, is this worth it? Like one of us will typically stop and be like, is this worth it? Like I'm willing to put down my sword for the night because I don't think it's worth wasting the next 3 hours. If you think it's worth it, game on, baby. We can do this all night. But if you think this is not worth, and so like we'll literally have that conversation, and obviously we love each other, so it's never like, no, this is. I'll usually go, no, this is absolutely worth it, and she's like, okay, we can do this, and then like 3 minutes later, I like stop beating my chest and put my steak down, and
the best one is like about the like not going to bed angry is like when you kind of are like, okay, you're kind of over it, but like you have apologized, but you're both still a little bit angry, and so you kind of like still have to like do that kiss where you're like,
no, you turn the lights down low, little Barry Manilow on.
Well, we know that. That's what Matt does.
We know how Matt does it.
Oh, that works every time.
Anyway, that's awesome stuff. Well, let's get into dad interest before we close this out. What dad interest do you guys have for me for this week?
I started an audiobook this week called Stories Sell. The author's name is Matthew Dix. Totally different.
Unfortunate name, but
totally different approach to business than you've heard. The guy was a teacher.
Okay.
And he started going to these storytelling contests in New York City, and he started winning them, right? And he just kept telling stories, and he got to the point where people started knowing him for stories, and then business started asking him, hey, will you help me craft this narrative either internally, there's a CEO, or hey, we have a new product launch and we need some help for people to understand really what it is and what it's doing. So it's just niche of marketing that I never knew would really exist. Like he gets hired to.
Oh, cool.
Now he's also, because he's a good storyteller, he gets hired for keynotes and stuff like that. And I think he's done a TED Talk or two, but just a really interesting approach to like how, and just a big spoiler here, I guess, but like how he takes little moments every day. His point is like, there are little moments every day that happen that are actually really impactful. We just forget them. Like they're happening all the time. People come to me, you're such a great storyteller. He's like, I'm not, but I do document everything I do. Like he has everyday homework, he calls it, where he's like, he'll just take little blurbs at the end of the day, just enough to trigger that memory or whatever happened. Yeah. And he's like, so I have like years of this stuff and I can tie stories. You could ask me to speak at any conference and I can tell stories that will resonate. And then, there's an art to obviously telling a story, but then
there is an art to telling a story.
Turning to a message, right? Not just a story for a story's sake. Sure. Or that guy, you're like, oh, here we go again. He's telling the same story. Yeah. But yeah, no,
I
it's
felt
been
that was
good.
directed towards me.
I think so. I leaned back so it wouldn't be directed at me. I think it like ended up between you and I, so
I
I
was
think it
just
could have
kind
been
of doing
either of
this.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I'm going to pull something up that someone sent me because it was super impactful over the last couple of days because I've got I think over the years you start collecting people that are sort of like instrumental in your life in some sort of like mentorship form or another. And I've kind of come across someone like that, and he sent me this like 21 powerful life lessons from a guy named George Reveling, and he goes into this whole thing. But the first one was and so it's super cool to see that. But one of the things that I took away, and I've been kind of thinking about or ruminating on for the last couple of days was he wakes up every morning and says, you have two choices today. Every day you have two choices. And as I was reading it, I was like, okay, it could be a good day or a bad day. Choose a good day. And George says, when my feet hit the floor, I have two choices. I can be either happy or very happy today.
Wow.
And when you think about it in that context, you're like, I can either be happy or I can be very happy. There's no other alternative. And so anyway, there's like 21 of these, like, they're not stoic sayings, they're regular sayings, but it's kind of got that sort of philosophy around it. But that's been something that's kind of been stuck in my head is like every day wake up, I can either be happy or I can be very happy.
Yeah.
And prior to our podcast, I was complaining about how angry I was today.
So it's clearly
definitely working on it.
Definitely, yeah.
But the idea is like, it is like you can be either happy or very happy, and anything else you shouldn't even have enter your mind. So that's my
That's good. That's
nice.
My thought of the week.
That's good.
All right. Well, I'm a little scared to give you guys my dad interest for this week because I feel like you guys make fun of me every time I give a dad interest. No.
Well, don't make it weird.
That's unfortunate choice of wording. Mine is hostage tape. Have you heard of hostage tape?
I have not.
Have you heard of hostage tape? Like the mouth tape for when you go to sleep?
No.
You've never heard of like hostage?
I mean, I've heard of hostage tape.
I don't know why.
Real hostage.
I don't know why this is relating to like date night with your wife and hostage tape.
It felt like the first. Well, no, like I'm not saying like with handcuffs and like.
Japanese bike leathers going on over there.
Me or Matt right now? Matt's the one who told me about the hostage tape.
Now that you mention it, I do remember reading or seeing something about like taping your mouth so you breathe through your nose or something like that.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. Nothing to do with keeping the spark
alive. Can I change the name?
Well, I think
keep the spark alive.
We are looking for sponsors, actually. No, I think hostage tape is one of the brands. I don't think I ended up getting like the hostage tape. It felt weird typing that into Amazon, but like it is the mouth tape thing. And I've tried it a couple of times, and I don't know. I was curious just to get your guys' opinion, but it's supposedly meant to be better breathing through your nose, but it also then highlights issues like with your breathing. So like I'll wake up in the middle of the night just like gagging because I'm still not used to like breathing like through my nose yet. But then it's like you'll have allergies this time of year. Or for me, like I've broken my nose a couple of times, so I know like something's not quite right here. So it's like to force you to like get your allergies looked at and like other stuff. And then once you eventually start like mouth breathing, you're supposedly meant to get a much better quality of sleep. So deeper sleep and more restful sleep. And you could, in theory, sleep for less time and have better quality of sleep. So
you're saying mouth breathing? You want to?
You don't want to. Yeah.
So like I'm like I actually, it was weird. I don't know when it was. But I used to always get a dry mouth. So I like told myself, like, you're no longer sleeping with your mouth. And so like I just stopped. And now I breathe through my nose now.
So that's one of the things. And another thing is like when you when you sleep with an open mouth or you are breathing through your mouth at night, that's where a lot of like the saliva and cavities and all that stuff happens. So
I've heard like bacteria and all sorts of stuff.
Bad breath, all of that stuff.
I'm not really a back sleeper. I feel like if you're a back sleeper, you deal with that stuff.
Oh, see, I'm a back sleeper. I literally like go to bed. I'm just like,
because your mouth.
More like a coffin,
dude. It is like I could sleep in a coffin and be 100% comfortable. I just lay down on my back and that's it.
I'm not a back sleeper. I'm a stomach sleeper. Like stomach inside, stomach inside. Probably part of why I have bad back.
I think we have some psychological issues sleeping in your stomach. We gotta dig deep in that.
Do we?
I don't know.
Well, already regret giving you that dad interest. Take us home, Matt.
Yeah, everybody, thanks for listening today. If you're an old dad, you're a young dad, or you're just interested in what what's really like being a dad. That's what we're trying to do here. So we'd love for you to join the conversation. Drop us a comment. You can email us at theboardroom@chiefdadofficers.com. We'd love to hear questions again, comments. And again, thanks a lot for listening today.
Cheers.